I saw Eddington yesterday, Ari Aster's new film, and I sort of I was apprehensive about seeing it because I wasn't really sure if it would piss me off or not. Um, and but I felt that I had to take it in. Um, Otherwise, I would just I would just be bursting with curiosity. So curiosity got me into the movie theater to watch it on the day of its release, and I think that something that people were all wondering about was what this this is Ari Aster, who's he seems to be a he seems to specialize in a kind of provocateurship as a director. Making these movies that are well crafted, but in some sense highly unpleasant. Um, and this can be seen from like his the the short feature that he made about uh, a a son uh, sexually abusing his father. Like, where does where does a person get an idea like that? Where does a person think to himself, you know what, that would be an interesting subject for a short feature. I'm going to make a short feature. What should I make it about? I know. Why don't I make it about a grown man, a young man who sexually abuses his father for years on end, and the mother knows what's going on but doesn't say anything about it, and so it's like a reversal of the the kind of abuse that we would expect. In a way, it's interesting, but another way, it's like, oh man, like why? Like a normal mind would say, why should I? That's appalling. Um, but I think it seems that Ari Aster is just drawn to appalling subject matter, and but he's got skills, and I've liked. I've sort of I did not like Hereditary. I I did like Midsummer, but not the way that I've always put it was Hereditary. I wished I hadn't seen. I could have gone without seeing it and been fine. Seeing it was just upsetting. I have a real sensitivity about things happening to kids, so that I mean that's one thing I could have gone without seeing. Midsummer, I actually liked, but I could but I would never see it again. I wouldn't see the reason ever to watch it again. But I'm actually glad that I saw it the first time, uh, because it is well made and it is interesting, yeah, I know people out there have strong feelings about it one way or the other. Uh, I know it's got its detractors, people with ideological detractions. Um, I don't want to. That's not the subject of this video, anyhow. But but I know I know that I know that people think things about it, and I get that. His third movie, Beau is Afraid, I actually also liked, but it was it's like it's another movie where it's like what why did you why did you make this? What's the what's the whole idea here? Um you know what's what's the audience supposed to like? There's no real catharsis or anything. It's just kind of a in some ways an exercise in filmic sadism. Um, Eddington is sort of the same way. Um, Now, the what I was afraid of going into seeing Eddington was I knew it was set in the year 2020. I knew it was about, in some sense, the events of 2020. So I didn't know if it was going to be making fun of, the people feel strongly about the year 20, the things that happened in the year 2020 on one side or the other. It's 2020 is a very polarizing year. And I kept hearing about how this is a very polarizing movie. And people still say that this is a polarizing movie because of its take on 2020. And the thing is that the perspective that the movie takes on the controversies of 2020 is really not. Uh, it really doesn't take sides. It kind of sees everybody as hysterical. So if you're an anti-mask person, you kind of you maybe you get bent out of shape, and that's silly. But if you're like a mask uh, a mask Nazi, so to say, then you are also uh, you're also made fun of. And the same came with the BLM stuff. There's uh, it's like it's not just making fun of both sides. It's like eh, these anytime there's an expression of strong feeling, it's it's more or less held up for ridicule. And I don't know whether Ari Aster cares uh, much about one way or the other. Uh, and so well, there's no indication in the movie that he comes down on one side or the other because it's what ends up happening in the movie. Uh, there is there are all the kinds of things that reflect on the year 2020 and reflect poorly on the year 2020. There's police misconduct. Uh, there's political hypocrisy. Um, Again, everybody, all sides are held up for ridicule. Um, there's Antifa violence. Um, uh, and it's all just sort of a backdrop that forms this story. It's a backdrop for this story that's set in the small town in New Mexico, in which it's basically a struggle between a personal fight between two men, um, and the political issues are really just they become uh, what both what each of the men uses in the struggle, that like the whether it's a means of virtue signaling on one side, or the with the more liberal uh, of these two men who are both running for mayor of this small town. Um, for him, he takes he just as for so many lefty politicians at the time of the time, it was all just spouting the rhetoric of uh, you know white supremacy and or being against white supremacy and being an ally and and this kind of stuff. And we see that uh, it's all a lie. It's all just something that's a setup. We also see a bunch of protesters, and it's really weird. It's really surreal that there's just this town that's out in the middle of nowhere where you think they would be sheltered from all this kind of stuff, and yet there are there are all these young white activists who are going on and on about how evil it is to be white and how you know and like they talk about how they have no right to say anything, and that's but they never stop talking. That's like that's what I said. It wasn't satirical, but that is one satirical aspect of this movie that does come up often with these characters that are on that go on about uh, you know the evil of whiteness and uh, and it's all young white people who won't shut up about their about the evil of whiteness, and they're like there's a scene where they try to talk a black man who's on the um, who's working for the local police department. They try to get him to join them. It's like, why are you like we don't have the right to say anything about this, but why are you taking the wrong side, brother? You should be out here with us. And just the presumptuousness of it, the ridiculousness of it, the self contradictory nature of it, of the quote unquote white saviorism, where we see how it's often asserted that these kinds of white activists, it's basically a form of white supremacy. Uh, it's just turned on its head, but it's still saying, we're going to change. We know best. We know better uh, than you non-whites who are taking an inconvenient position here. Uh, you know, we're gonna. It's we're really the ones who ought to be steering this conversation, um, and just the whole nature of virtue signaling. But other than that, it's really just a movie about how all these kinds of controversies. It's set in this world where that's increasingly polarized, where uh, it's one side or the other is as it said in that poem, the worst are full of passionate intensity. Um, the best lack all conviction, and the worst are full of passionate intensity. Uh, the W.B. Yeats poem. I think I got the wording right there. Um, and the worst are those on both sides in this movie. It's really not that polarizing insofar as it's not really uh, arguing coming down on one side or the other, but seeing all uh, expressions of outrage at the system, uh, whether it comes from the so-called left, the so-called right, as they've been categorized. Um, it it sees all of this stuff as more or less hot air. Uh, if there's any judgment cast at all, I don't know if the movie really cares uh, whether there's, if there's truth on one side or the other. It's more or less just background, as I said. But ultimately, the way that it ends, I'm not going to give away the ending, but there's something like with most with the Astor movies up to this point. There is that something a little distasteful about it. There's something sadistic about it. There's something like um, I think the common denominator in just about all of his movies is you have people uh, struggling against their fate who are bound to lose, and so the movie the duration of the movie is just watching them lose their grip, uh, and get you know see them all like the flower plucked up and all the petals plucked off of it one by one until there's nothing left to it, and the thing that's left just is just you just toss it over your shoulder. That's basically what the director does with the main character in this movie. He's someone who's not kind of a simple guy, not that bright, but he has certain foundations that are slipping in his life, certain things that are happening that are beyond his control, and he can't really do much to stand up against them. Uh, his wife is alienated from him for reasons that that aren't entirely clear. Uh, but so he's stuck in this loveless marriage. But not only that, but his crazy mother-in-law is living with the couple. Uh, so that's like the nightmare kind of nightmare married life. Having to deal with your mother-in-law, uh, uh, and her always asserting her presence in ways that are inappropriate, and also you can't you just can't you can't break through. You can't get through to your wife. Your wife is lost to you for reasons you don't understand. And then he makes certain decisions which aren't wise decisions, uh, and are ultimately just about him trying to take control of the things that have slipped out of his control. Um, but of course, it doesn't work. Of course, it just leads to his undoing. And again, there's something kind of repugnant about just watching someone suffer uh, for the duration of the movie, and you know what it's sort of equivalent to throwing someone in a pool who can't swim and just watching him splash around and desperately try to stay afloat, and then eventually sink below the surface, and then the end. It's like as the curtain uh, um, falls at the end of it all, you're like, okay, that was not uh, that was not a pleasant or edifying experience. So, um, so I guess I'm not really a fan of Ari Aster. I'm gonna just say that right now. I'm not particularly a fan. Um, Again, he's skilled, and this film is shot like the if you want to just talk about how it looks, it's it's a beautiful film insofar as just the portrayal of this desolate area, and desolation can be very compelling, and I think the cinematography, or the mise en scène, uh, is is compelling, but ultimately the story is is not very edifying. And again, it doesn't really, the all the 2020 stuff, aside from the making fun of the white saviorism of the white activists, um, which is appreciated, which is a fun satirical jab. Other than that, there's not really much. Uh, Even though it's set in 2020, it's not really about the controversies of 2020. So that's my those are my thoughts of Eddington. Has anybody else seen it? What do you think?